Its origins hatched in Slavic folklore. The mythical firebird's journey westward has only enhanced its avant lore. Finding sanctuary amid sands both timeless and perpetual, the allure of the bird's plumage radiant, eyes hypnotic, talons just, and song enchanting prove a presence magical for those who respect its powers, and a harbinger dark for those who seek to tame its flight. In tales of yore, times bygone, the firebird protects its nest, the hue of its brilliant feathers, a guiding glow of belief, of renewal, of light, of home. A narrative rooted in myth, such powers, such imaginations are today realized with a tale of light and freeze. For the firebird and those who embrace its journey, it is a tale of seasons reborn, a fable actualized by the forge of steel blade and wooden implement, a legend which grows by roar and score. It is a story of fire and ice.
Greetings, friends and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort, coming to you from Palm Desert, California. I'm here, Jacob Melanson, body blow away from the Birds Home Ice of Acrisure Arena. I'm your host, Judd Spicer, and just as the Birds are returning to American League Hockey for a fourth season of play, so does this show return in kind. Yes, friends, new season, new cast, new crew on the podcast. That, I may add enthusiastically, includes a new partner, as you may have just recognized, a new open, as you may have just recognized, a new sponsor, and yes, a new segment as Birds return for season 4. Here to help parse some of that eventually as we get to it is this episode's guest, Troy Bodie. He's been the traditional first guest of the season the previous 2 years, I want to say. Yeah, that's correct. Troy Bodie, the Birds VP of Hockey and Business Operations, will be joining me shortly. Troy's appearance will then be followed by said new segment, calling it the Desert Sundown. Might need to work on that. Might call it the Desert Shootout. That's a rapid-fire Q&A session, which will conclude each episode of Fire and Ice, presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. On this episode, we'll be joined by Andrew John of the Desert Sun, and that will be interchanged throughout the season with appearances with Shad Powers, along with Andrew also reported so adroitly and adeptly on the Firebirds throughout the team's brief but very bright history. Per the Desert Sun new partnership, so very proud, so very enthused to align myself with an outlet that I so enjoyed working with for over a dozen years. And oh, by the way, a newspaper that has informed our Coachella Valley for nearly a century. Desert Sun, by the way, dates all the way back to 1927. Per the new partnership this season, fresh with the Desert Sun, you can find all episodes of Fire and Ice on the DesertSun.com sports page, along with the spectrum of the newspaper's sporting side socials. Each episode is going to be posted there, and again, coupled with the Desert Sundown segment at the end of every show. We'll look forward to visiting with Andrew eventually on this program. Desert Willow Golf Resort, they're the ones that truly make this show go. Again, very proud, very enthused to have them as the title sponsor of the Fire and Ice podcast. A mere mile plus away from the Birds Home Ice of Acrisure Arena. You know I love a good segue. Make it a great putt-to-puck day. Go tee it up over at Desert Willow, either the Mountain View or Firecliff courses, respectively. Skate it on down Cook, cut over to Varner, bang it out for a Birds home game at Acrisure Arena. A couple things about Desert Willow. Again, so very enthused to have them back as the title sponsor of this program. The Platinum Card, residents and non-residents alike, boasting all manner of player and guest benefits. You'll find that at desertwillow.com. Mention the Firecliff and Mountain View courses. Mountain View right now undergoing overseed. Be mindful of that when you make your tee times. Overseed until October 22nd. The Firecliff, love both of these courses. The Firecliff, of course, is coming off of that multi-million-dollar renovation, the course enhancements late last year. Got the new Mini Verde Bermuda grass greens. They also paid a lot of attention to the tee boxes, reshaped, leveled, expanded those boxes. This summer passed, further work and renovation over at Desert Willow on the Mountain View, some turf removal, some fresh desert scaping. You can check that out for yourself again after the Mountain View reopens from Overseed on October 23. One more thing on Desert Willow and the Firebirds. Some new synergy between the two impressive entities. This December 13th and 14th, friends, what was once a pair of separate golf events will now coalesce into one, teaming the Birds One Valley Foundation event with the long-standing Grant Fuhr Celebrity Invitational Golf Tournament. They're going to form one super singular event that is held at Desert Willow Golf Resort. So you want to tee it up with the Birds, all the players will be there, or some of the athletic luminaries that regularly have played in Grant's annual event. You can check that out at onevalleyfoundation.org. One Valley Foundation, that is the philanthropic arm of our Coachella Valley Firebirds. Sign up your team today. Took a peek, by the way, at the celebrity field. I know it's going to grow as that event gets a little nearer, but already on that list, got Marcus Allen, Kenny Lofton, the great Jeremy Roenick, all of them already confirmed and signed up to play again, along with all of your Coachella Valley Firebirds. All right, folks, as regular and longtime listeners of Fire and Ice are aware, it's about the time in the program where we dip into the regular Firebirds freeze frame segment, take a look at stats, take a look at schedule, take a look at promotions, take a look at news and notes and goings on. I referenced at the outset of this show a new sponsor to the program, and they are the sponsor of the Firebirds freeze frame segment. You know, dudes, ice action isn't limited to Acrisure alone. Hockey fans, you're seeking some pregame drinks, post-game toasts, you only need to look yonder high desert, where our Firebirds friends at both the 29 Palms Beer Company and the Ground Squirrel are serving up some awesome eats, incredible beers in downtown 29 Palms. Ground Squirrel, by the way, that's GRNDSQRL. Ground Squirrel sports an awesome gastropub-style scratch-made menu. I might personally suggest the pepperberry dry rub wings to get going. Match that with a rotating list of craft beers. Those looking for a potent power play, you skate right on down the street to the 29 Palms Beer Company, where they're brewing their own phenomenal beers right on site and televising every single Coachella Valley Firebirds game, home or away. So you're local, you're seeking a fun new scene, or you're a desert guest up in the high desert, explore Joshua Tree, maybe Pioneer Town. Whether you want to celebrate a Birds win, you want to drown some sorrows after a tough loss, head up yonder high desert, lace up the hospitality in 29 Palms with the Ground Squirrel and the 29 Palms Beer Company. They're going to prove your high desert hockey home. So enthused to have them joining the program this season as a new sponsor. All right, Firebirds friends, taking a look at the schedule to be. Birds get underway. Home opener, season opener this Friday night. It's at home at Acrisure Arena, 7 p.m. start time. It's Friday, October the 10th against the San Diego Gulls. Birds are going to have 3 home games in October. We know the AHL schedule starts off a little mellow, starts off a little slower. November is going to kick things up a notch with 7 home games. That is tied for the most in any month this season. Again, for games at Acrisure Arena. 5 home games in December. 7 home games as well in January. That's going to match the highest for November. February with 4 games at the Birds Barn. The month of March will sport 6 home games at Acrisure Arena. Close it out in April 2026 with 4 home games at Acrisure. More evenly spaced. We've seen a little different in years past, dudes, where we've had some big months, we've had some slow months. Notice a little more evenly paced schedule, evenly spread out schedule for the course of this 4th season of Firebirds hockey. Per other changes, borrow a little David Bowie there. On the bench, our old friend Zuli, Colin Zulianello, in the offseason, he got the promotion. He is now the goaltender coach for our Big Daddy club, the Seattle Kraken. That said, we welcome a new goalie coach in Vince Stiletti. Stiletti coming to us after 5 years after working at the University of Connecticut. Per the roster, going to dig into this deeper when we visit shortly with Troy Bodie. A lot of familiar faces returning to the Birds for this season. Basically, 14 full-timers are coming back. Very young team, I might add. We've got 17 guys, 23 years or younger on our opening day roster, or what at this stage, a couple days away, appears to be our opening day roster. Those 17 guys are matched with just 6 guys, 26 years or older, some familiar faces, some old Firebird friends included in that number to boot. Only 7 guys on the roster have yet to ever don a Coachella Valley jersey. So again, welcoming a lot of familiar faces back to the roster this year. Per other changes for the fans, I'll say this. I think based on the fact that the Birds did not, for the first time in franchise history, ascend to the Calder Cup Finals, a little more time for the front office to review, to assess, to listen to some fan comments, to listen to some fan feedback. And they have reacted. Credit to the Firebirds front office for making some changes that I think are going to go over very well this year. The dozen weeknight home games, and weeknights being Monday through Thursday, does not include Friday nights. So for the dozen games during the week, that's going to exclude the New Year's Eve game, of course, on December 31st, I should say, against Bakersfield. That's a 5 p.m. start. All the other ones have been kicked up. They've been moved up a half hour. No longer 7 p.m. puck drops. Those are now 6:30 p.m. puck drops. A couple other changes of which folks should be aware. Cost of food. There's going to be some great value that can be found at Acrisure Arena this year. A lot of options we found at $10 or under. Also looking for reductions, friends. You're going to find it in parking. Those that do some prepay parking are going to find a reduced cost. I know that that was a big issue, and understandably so, for parking at Acrisure Arena. So when you go to the Birds games, especially if you're not a season ticket holder, if you're just looking for a one-off, looking for a fun night out, make sure to get that prepay parking and do so in advance. You're going to save a few dollars heading over to Acrisure Arena. All right, dudes, that's the lay of the land. That's the lay of the ice as it stands now. No stats yet to report, no analyses yet to offer. Haven't yet played a game, but they will this Friday night. Home opener, season opener. We'll see it over at Acrisure this Friday night, October 10th, versus the San Diego Gulls. And again, so proud to welcome a new sponsor, the sponsor of this Firebirds Freeze Frag segment, your high desert hockey home, the Ground Squirrel, GRNDSQRL, and the 29 Palms Beer Company, both up yonder. 29 Palms just went up there in recent days. Again, I'm going to recommend those pepperberry dry rub wings over at the Ground Squirrel, and then a whole host of beers to enjoy and sample at the 29 Palms Beer Company, where they are televised every single CV Firebirds game, whether it be home or away. All right, dudes, all that offered, all that prefaced. Let's get to this episode's feature interview with Troy Bodie, VP of Hockey and Business Operations for your CV Firebirds. All right, Firebirds flock, debut episode of the Firebirds' 4th season of hockey. And as prefaced, we welcome back an old friend to the show, and Troy Bodie. He's the VP of Hockey and Business Operations for our CV Firebirds. A lot to catch up on as play gets underway. Troy, welcome back to the Fire and Ice podcast, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Before we look to the present and a little bit to the future, just a shade behind us. Let's look in the rear view to last year, briefly, if we may. Just want to get kind of your final thoughts and impressions and how you look back at what was a pretty solid year, man. 37 wins, 84 total points, 4th place finish in the 10-team pack. Ultimately lost in the second round to Abbotsford, which was an excellent team. For the 3rd time in as many seasons, the Firebirds lost to the eventual champions. But a different season in many ways for the Firebirds and the franchise. What do you think, in looking back, if even a little bit, was ultimately learned? What was your takeaway from that 3rd season?
Yeah, you know, the first 2 seasons we were very veteran heavy, still waiting for a lot of our Kraken draft picks to mature to the age of coming to pro hockey, and then this past year we really started to get a big chunk of them in there. So we went from having older teams um, very veteran, and then go to the finals each year to a younger team where there was a lot of learning. There was a lot of teaching involved. A lot of players that really had to figure out how to walk before they ran, and it was a good learning season for a lot of these players. I was very happy with how things turned out. I mean, we were fourth in the division, safely in a playoff spot. Won our first playoff round against Calgary, which I was very proud of. You never take for granted being able to be in the playoffs, but also having a playoff win. And then losing to the eventual Calder Cup champions was difficult, but I was very proud of our group of how we played against them and really proved that we could have beat them and in a different situation, maybe we get past them and we go further, and who knows what happens. But I was very proud of how the group gelled last year, how we came together as a team. Very, very happy with the coaching staff and how they managed the group. But it's never fun losing out early, but you got to take the positives away from the season last year, and overall, I was very happy.
Was there something that you personally learned in your administrative role, Troy? I guess
Mhm.
taken away from last season.
Yeah, you really have to learn, how to manage a lot of young players. A lot of these players come from junior hockey where they're the stars, right? We had two players that led their respective leagues in scoring, and they come in and now they've got to find their place in pro. And managing that aspect of someone coming in and just thinking they're going to light the league on fire, and it doesn't happen right away. And to be honest, it shouldn't happen right away with just how this league works. I mean, these are teenagers coming in playing against grown men who have been established NHL players or 10-year veterans, and then no one's going to give you an inch. So personally, just managing a group like that was a real learning experience for me. And hopefully, with every learning experience, you're better off in the end.
You used the word pride, I think, on two occasions thus far into our chat. Segues well into my next question. Yes, this is a Firebird show. This is not a Seattle Kraken show. But the Seattle Kraken roster heading into this season is about a third of former Firebirds, many of whom played a lot of games here at Acrisure Arena. When you see that, does that make you proud?
Certainly does. Yeah, we want to be a good hockey team down here in the valley and represent this valley well. But our job is to also develop players to be future Kraken. And when you see that happen, it's very rewarding, knowing that we've helped these players achieve their dreams of being NHL players and also helping the Kraken have success. Watching Joey Daccord doing what he does up there, and Yanni Newman scoring big goals last year. Ty Karche coming from a undrafted position to being an NHL player within a year. I'll use the word pride again. I was very proud to be a part of that and to see players move on.
New situation, of course, in Seattle this year. Lane Lambert taking over as head coach. That has seemingly worked out well for Yanni Newman, who made that roster you mentioned. Ryan Winterton also made the Kraken roster. Coming in with a new coach and moving away from somebody that many of these players have played for and known for years. By and large, pound for pound, is that tough on players to have to go out and impress and to make an impression on a new guy, especially a new guy coming from outside the organization? Or do you think it's kind of exciting for players like, oh, I get a total kind of blank slate, fresh start?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, you get a blank slate, coach doesn't know you. You get to go show him what you can do and how you can be a, um, a Kraken player. Often players come in as I said, as young rookies, and those first impressions can be tough. It's tough to adjust to pro. But with a new coach, you are what you are at that very moment, and you get a clean slate. It is a lot of pressure though. You have a short period of time to prove what you bring to a team, and those the mistakes are made larger when you that's all you the only opportunities you get to show them. And at the same time, if you succeed, those are etched into a coach's mind as well. But some players had some really good camps, and they came in and surprised us all. I even some players who didn't make the club and are down here are setting themselves up for great success this year.
Yeah, I'm certainly touching upon some of those names here momentarily. I guess one more on the Kraken and Lane Lambert. I assume a different system in place, and a different style of play than what the Kraken saw under Dan Bylsma last year. Do you see that a different system? And if so, how might that impact the Firebird style of play this year, organizationally speaking?
Yeah, being an affiliate organization down here, we like to mirror what the Kraken do in terms of their systems. It makes it easier when players, are recalled from the Firebirds to go up there and they fit right into the systems. They don't have to learn anything new. They don't have to adjust to that. And it makes it a lot easier. Lane's brought in some new things in the D zone and the way he does that there. And hopefully it's going to improve upon recent years and hopefully it'll help us have success here as well.
I got to get this one in as it pertains to NHL rosters, because it may have an impact, or I'm curious to hear if your thoughts if it does have an impact. We're looking a few clicks down the line, Troy, but it is an Olympic year. NHL players back in the Olympics. The Kraken ultimately carried three goalies on their roster. I think they're one of six NHL teams to ultimately do so. But when we get, and by the way, it's going to create a totally compacted, very, very grinding and difficult NHL schedule. So many backs to backs this year. A lot of extra travel for these players because we have a 19-day pause that's going to take place in February. Is this going to have an impact ultimately on AHL rosters during this big NHL break?
Yeah, often players that aren't solidified on that NHL roster or up there for a game or two, then they'll get sent down to us to play. So hopefully we get some players down during that time and bolstering our roster. But I mean, you said it, there's a 19-day break right in the middle of the NHL season. That makes for a very compact schedule of games when they are playing. I think it's a game every other day, really. It's going to be difficult on the NHL rosters and physically taxing, and it could result in more injuries and therefore more recalls. So, but it's universal around the league. Every team goes through it. Hopefully, some of our players here in Coachella Valley get some opportunities up there, show what they can do. Whether it's short term, long term, but even just the littlest sniff up there can help a player's confidence. When they do come down, it gives them the belief that they can be NHL players, and that often turns into success for us down here.
Yeah, just a seed. Obviously, we're talking that's February. That's still many months away, but a seed that I wanted to plant nonetheless. Let's focus more on day one and game one and get back to October here, friends. Of course, you're tuning into the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. I'm your host, Judd Spicer. Troy Bodie, Birds VP of Hockey and Business Operations, is my guest. Let's look at the roster as it stands right now. Still a couple days shy of our opening day, our opening night. And in looking at this roster, Troy, I mean, a lot of familiar faces. We basically, of the 25 that we've got presently, we have like 14 guys that were full timers with CV that are back. Now we got a lot of youth, 17 players that are 23 years old or younger. But when we talk about this youth, in large part, we're talking about very experienced youth players that have a lot of AHL experience, even at that tender age, already under the belt. How would you speak broadly about the youth on this Birds roster heading into the season?
Yeah, you mentioned it is a young roster. I think looking at it, there's 5 players that are not on their entry level contracts is what it is. Makes for a young group, but I think it's quite an advantage to have a lot of your Kraken draft picks in on the team. It's a talented group. We've drafted well over the years. The players that are coming in this year, Oscar Mogard and Tyson Jugnoff, very talented, smart hockey players. I think they're going to be real fan favorites quite early. We've got some exciting young D, but we still got, it's tough to think of a second year and third year players as veterans. But these are players that got their feet wet last year and the year before that and are going to step into, highly offensive roles and important shutdown roles. And we've been preparing for this in the last few years. Our player development group has done a very good job getting them ready to make that transition. And it's a good young group of players. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with a lot of them, and it'll be interesting to see how things shake out in terms of line combinations and roles and all that and power play time. But it will we're gonna have a good group down here.
For the first time, you went a little easy on us as far as research in the off season. I think it was the first off season where I didn't have to look up, and I know some fellow media members would say the same about three, four, five, six grizzled AHL/AHL, NHL overseas veteran types that had a lot of hockey under their respective belts that you guys brought in to pair with the younger players. Not really the case. That's not how you assembled the roster this year.
Yeah. You know, when we had, expiring contracts this past year, they got filled up pretty quick with these brand new prospect contracts that are coming in, and that's gonna make for a young team like I mentioned before. But yeah, we're out of the phase of the grizzled veteran group that we've had in the past. But those veterans we've had in years prior have, they've shaped the culture and the and how we do things around here. And it's been good for these young players that have come in here in previous years after their junior season's done, seeing how we operate down here. We really expect to win every single night. We expect to work hard every single night. We expect to play detailed hockey, be hungry around the nets, and that stuff's already showing in some of these young players who have yet to play a game, that they're already bought into Birds hockey.
Should mention that a couple of those familiar faces, those aforementioned, pardon me, grizzled veterans that are back, some great Firebirds, all great hockey players all around. John Hayden, Ben Myers, Mitchell Stevens, Gustav Olofsson back for his fourth season with the Firebirds, as is Ian McKinnon. So we have these faces pairing with the younger players as well. A couple fellas that we are not going to see anytime soon or perhaps ever again. I know it's funky to talk about injuries, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that, Troy. Nathan Villeneuve, he made a great impression on us last year, not yet on the roster. Leighton Road, White Bear Lake, Minnesota zone. We know he's dealing with an injury. And then Max McCormick, we had the press release come out about maybe a week and a half ago that he will be out for the season, the captain Max, because of hip injury and I believe a subsequent hip surgery. But of course, we didn't see a lot of Max last year. I don't know if we saw him at all the second half of the season, if memory serves. And the question arose for me, and I know it did for many others, that if he was going to have surgery, and again, I know this is dicey to talk about guys' personal bodies and their injuries and stuff, but it did occur to me that, like, okay, could he have had this surgery going back even to last spring or early in the summertime? So we may have enjoyed his services this year. Was that discussed?
It was certainly discussed. Yeah, it's Max is getting his hip operated on. it's not a small surgery. It's quite invasive and um it's something that we didn't take lightly, and we thought about helping Max, rehab it fully, and obviously we helped him in any way we possibly could. Do we with any injury, it's always, do you rehab and try to get it back to a place where you could play? Do you operate, um, try to you know, get it closer to fixed, um, things like that. And that was discussed at length, not only internally, but with Max as well. And, ultimately that's a decision Max has to make. Unfortunately, it just came to the part where, Max chose to get surgery. To be honest, I don't know if he would have gotten that surgery earlier, would he have even returned? It is just the nature of the injury. It was doubtful. So.
All right, thank you for touching upon that. Again, I know it's dicey to talk about injuries. Let's talk about some of the youngsters. We're talking about, I got four names for you, all 21 or 20 years old, all. You mentioned a couple of them. Young Tyson Jugnoth, going to see him for the first time. Defender, big season in the W last year, and really impressed a lot of people in Kraken camp. What can you tell us about Tyson?
Yeah, Tyson's a very smooth, skilled, smart offensive hockey player. Put up a lot of points last year. He's the type of player. You don't teach a lot of the things that Tyson has. It's I like to say God-given, um, and he's very exciting. He moves the puck very well. He reads and scans a power play very, very well. Moves pucks quick. Brings the puck up the ice really well. A very smart defender as well. He really impressed us in Kraken camp with his defensive abilities as well. Um, so we're excited to see him on the back end, what he can do for our power play, and hopefully he can put some points up on the board right away.
Read a cool story about Tyson that in the summer on his own dime. He paid for himself to move to Seattle and to rent an apartment and be able to work out in the Kraken facility because I guess that was the shortcoming, for lack of a better word, with him or on his game is that he really needed to put on like 20 pounds of muscle to be able to play at this or potentially or eventually the NHL level. And it sounds like he's taken the last 4 or 5 months to really do that.
Yeah, Tyson very, very much so has committed himself to improving his fitness and his strength. You know, telling for a young player to come to us and say he's going to forego his summer with his friends and his family because he's committed to playing playing better hockey and developing properly is a huge step in the right direction. Hopefully, it's something that other players understand that he's going to get rewarded for this year. Just that level of commitment it's not easy to do. It's not something that's taken lightly, but it is something that he will benefit from greatly, and we're very, very impressed with his maturity.
To discuss young Edward Chalet a little bit. You and I talked about Edward for an article we did last year. Got off to a great start. Hey, the kid is still just 20 years old, former number one first round draft pick of the Kraken. The first 5 games, or 25 games, pardon me, last year, Edward got off to a really terrific start. 5 goals in those first 25 games. Then he appeared in the juniors where he played a lot of hockey, had a lot of travel, just 1 goal in his final 29 games. And I know goals don't tell the whole story, Troy. It's a long season for a young 19-year-old guy adapting to the AHL. But we saw flashes of what Edward Chalet certainly can do. I'm curious what you saw from him at camp, or perhaps discuss with him about his offseason so we can see his growth heading into this year.
Yeah, well, you just said it. I mean, there's Edward definitely showed the flashes of what he can do. He's a highly skilled, you know, highly highly competitive, smart player. He you know being a 19-year-old player in this league is very, very difficult. There's only a few players that are even mature enough to play at that age in this league. I mentioned earlier about being an older veteran league with 30-year-old men and 10-year-old veterans and former NHLers in this league. So, Edward got a great taste of pro hockey last year, got his feet wet, had some really good runs with us. Like I said, it's difficult for a 19-year-old to maintain that. So Edward came back to camp in the best shape he possibly could. He was actually one of the top conditioned athletes. So he was another guy that's really focused on his conditioning, and he's very much impressed. Scored the first goal in exhibition for us this year. We expect big things out of Edward for sure.
You referenced 20-year-old Oscar Molgard. Now, we had him last year on the roster as Oscar Fisker Molgard. Has he dropped the Fisker?
Apparently, he's dropped the Fisker. Simplicity. He's a simple guy. But yeah, that's what he's going with.
Saw him in 7 games last year, availed himself very, very well, had a couple goals. I believe he had 3 points. Again, raves coming out of Kraken camp for his performance. What do you see for him coming into year 2, Troy?
Yeah, Oscar's a very intelligent, very skilled two-way player. He's a 20-year-old player, but he's been playing with the men over in the Swedish Hockey League for 3 years now. He's had 3 years on the Danish men's national team as well. He's had some tremendous experience playing high-level hockey. Like I said, he's a very, very smart player, good skill. We saw that last year where he adapted to our, not only, the league over here and whatnot. He's never played on the small ice before. Over in Sweden, they play on a bigger ice surface, and in a lot of ways, it's a different game. But just how smart of a player he is, he adapted very well and showed very well in camp up with Kraken as well. And that's why he was one of the last players to come down to us. So he'll be a big part of our team.
Couple more for you today. Again, friends, you're tuning in to the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast, brought to you by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Judd Spicer, your host, Troy Bodie, my guest. I'm figuring out a way to title this. It feels too strong to call it an AHL Exodus, Troy, but these numbers are interesting. And over the course of the offseason, perhaps concerning. I'll let you tell me. But we had about 150 players, man, which is a lot. 150 AHL players from last year that are now playing overseas. A lot of them playing in the KHL, a lot of them playing in Norway, Liga, back in the Czech Republic. But we're talking like somewhere around 18% of players who played in the AHL last year decided to go overseas. Some of them former Firebirds that we enjoyed their services last year. Max Lajoie, Brandon Byro. We had former Firebirds doing the same. Andrew Podorowski, Chris Drieger, Connor Carrick, Brogan Rafferty, Devin Shore. All these guys going overseas. Yeah, when they're playing in the KHL, which morally to me seems a little bit gross, but I'll digress. They're getting a lot more rubles. I mean, you could be getting 5 times as much money to go play in that league as opposed to playing in the AHL, where your chances at making the National Hockey League for a lot of those guys, they may already have their answer, that they're a tweener, that they're going to go back and forth, that they may never be a full-time NHL player. But I'm curious as to your assessment of this situation. I trust it was something you were paying close attention to as the season neared.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a different game in Europe. I mean, there's different leagues. They offer different things for players as well. Some players go over there to finish off their careers. Some of them go over there to experience something else in life. Some of them, perhaps want to go over there so they get better opportunity to develop and perhaps come back later a stronger, more skilled, version of themselves, and that happens also. But it's good to see our Firebirds maintaining their careers, in other places, and I still keep tabs on all of them, and maybe someday we'll see one of them back here. But no, very happy for for the careers of our players, former players, go over and playing in Europe. So
I mean, I can't give you the metrics on how many players do that on a year-to-year basis, but when I say 150, were you at some point thinking to yourself, man, that's a lot?
yeah, no, I thought it was a big number for sure. But that it's such as life, it's a developmental league here. We like as much as there's 150 players, as you say, go over there. We have several rookies here, so we have the young rookies coming in, and they have to take somebody's spot at times, and that's it's the natural progression of the game, I suppose.
For you personally, your career going between the American League and the NHL, was that an opportunity presented to you? Is that something that you considered in your pro career playing overseas?
I would have loved to play overseas. I think it's such a great experience, and jealous sometimes seeing some of these players going over there and enjoying different cultures and playing a different game that we all love. But it wasn't in my kind of career path. Perhaps it could have been, but I chose to stay over here, and I don't have any regrets.
Close it out with this one. As we know, historically, the AHL season is wont to start kind of slow, kind of a mellow October schedule as we ease into the season. For the start of the year, let's look at October, Troy. And wins aside, what would you like to see that makes you feel like this year's version of the Firebirds is on the right track for this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would love to see us get off to a hot start and put some wins on the board right away. It's what I'd like to see is our players adapting to pro hockey quickly. There's going to be some there's some learning curves along the way. There's going to be mistakes made, and I completely understand that. I want to see our players compete. I want to see them work hard. I want to see them give up an inch. I think competitive nature is non-negotiable for Firebirds. We work hard here, and that's something that it is something that we don't take lightly here. But I feel if we work our tails off, go out there and play hard in front of our fans, good things will happen. We'll get some wins on the board. That's what I'd like to see in this first month. I'd love to say we're going to win every game. We're probably not going to win every game, but I just want to see good, hard, competitive hockey and something that this valley can be proud of.
Troy, I'm certainly enthused about the roster that you and your colleagues put together for the Firebirds this year. We got a young team with a ton of talent, mixed with some great experience in there. I think it's going to be a super fun season and a very entertaining year for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Great having you back on the show, my man. Thanks for your time. We'll see you soon at the Birds Bar in the Acrisure Arena.
Sounds good. Thanks very much, Jed.
All right, Firebirds flock, as offered a few times, certainly at the outset of this season debut episode, new partnership with the Desert Sun, coupled with a new segment that is going to wrap up every show, calling it the Desert Sundown, potentially Desert Shootout. Don't know if we necessarily have a title for it yet. Again, listener impressions on that are certainly appreciated. Also appreciated is the presence of this episode's shootout/sundown guest, Andrew John, reporter for the Desert Sun newspaper. Andrew actually connecting with us. He's right at Acrisure Arena for one of these media days leading up to the season. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Judd. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you back. Looking forward to the season ahead with our regular peanut gallery, whether that be you and me, you and Chad, all three of us amigos sitting together with our banter, watching the games. That is for later. This is for now. 5 questions in somewhat rapid fire succession. Let's get the inaugural Desert Sundown Sesh shootout underway with Andrew John of Desert Sun. First question for you, Andrew. Firebirds need to improve upon blank from last season.
Well, I think that for me, the obvious one is the power play, because if you remember, toward the end of last season, Yanni Newman, of course, their main gunner on the power. He missed 12 games during that kind of final stretch, and the Birds were just 2 of 38 on the power play during that stint that he was gone to Seattle. So, well, of course, he starts with the Kraken this season. So the obvious question for me is who's going to fill that void, and how are they going to improve on the power play without Yanni here? We don't know how long he's going to be gone. He may be with the Kraken all season. Who knows? But for now, that's something I think they definitely need to address. And I'm curious to see how they address that early on in the season here.
Set one up, knock one down. Move on to question number 2. For this season, you are most enthused to watch blank.
Yeah, I'm most enthused to watch this forward, Oscar Molgaard. Remember, he played I think he played 7 games with the Firebirds at the end of last season. Scored 2 goals, got an assist. 20-year-old from Denmark. He's a guy who has really impressed the Firebirds people. He was with the Kraken up until kind of the very end of their training camp there. And he just has a lot of offensive flair, really polished game. He's a guy who is, I think will be a favorite this year among the Acrisure Arena faithful, because he's just so fun to watch, and his ceiling as a player is pretty high. So I think despite all the exciting guys they're going to have in the lineup this year, he's the guy I'm looking forward to seeing most.
Great minds think alike, of course. Mention Oscar Molgaard in the recent chat in this episode with Troy Bodie. I like where Andrew John's head is also at. All right, the season hasn't yet started, Andrew, but you've been at some of the media days, and not all of them. You've been at some of these pressers as we lead into the season debut. Looking at the reporter's notebook, what's the best quote that you've gotten thus far?
I haven't really had like a jumping off the page quote from anyone that I had to write down, but there was one quote that was kind of a consistent theme. I heard this from Troy Bodie and from Derek Laxdal, and that was, "We're ready to go." That was the quote. It's different than it was this time last year, I believe, because last year, if you remember, Judd, they were, of course, coming off of back-to-back Calder Cup finals appearances, and everyone was saying, yeah, the goal is to get back to the finals and win it. But I think we all knew that was kind of an unrealistic expectation. And there was always like, well, we got a new coach. We got, some of our top guys left. Got a bunch of, there was always a but, right? We haven't really heard that this year. We've had a great camp and we're ready to go. It's really got to be encouraging, I think, for Firebirds fans to hear that, because, Troy had mentioned that they're going to be one of, if not the youngest team in the American Hockey League. But the fact that they're ready to go and they're excited about this group, I think is very telling.
I like that. Short, sweet, succinct, and potent. Move on to question number 4 or 5. We're calling this one. We'll revisit it throughout the course of this 4th season. We're calling it What's Cracking? What do you think, Andrew, since the season hasn't technically started yet? So this question will be altered once the games get underway. But what's cracking? Who's the first guy to get called up from the Firebirds to Seattle?
It's a tough one because the call-ups haven't always gone as we've expected, right?
Very true.
I mean, I love Ryan Winterton as a player, but I wouldn't have guessed that he would be the guy who would have stuck with the Kraken to start the season. Of all the guys in this lineup, he's a great player. I really like him. But yeah, we just don't know. You never know. I would say if you're looking for like a veteran presence, I think John Hayden would be the guy. But I'm really excited for Jacob Melanson this year. And I think he's a guy who, stepping into year 3 as a pro, I think he's a guy who could see a bit of time and the reason I say that is because he's just a tough guy who can really mix it up a little bit. And I think when we're looking at call-ups, sometimes you just need a guy like that who can come in, maybe won't score a ton of goals, but will really add something different to the lineup. And I think Melanson's that guy. So I would go with Melanson as the first call-up, though that is really difficult to predict.
Big, bold season prediction. Question number 5 of 5. What says Andrew John? Big prediction for the season ahead, season number 4, my friend.
I don't know. I would say that probably a similar record to last season. I think they would probably finish 3rd in the Pacific Division. And I would say they would win again another round in the playoffs, which I think is an accomplishment for a team that's going to be very young. I think if you can get in the playoffs, win a round again, I do feel like that would be an accomplishment for a group that should be very exciting, but still very young. And there's going to be some ups and downs, roller coaster type of season. But I do think this will be actually a little bit of a better season than it was last year, just in the fact that I think there will be more consistency. There was really lack of consistency last year, and that's really not on anyone in particular. We had so many guys in and out of the lineup with injuries and call-ups. Of course, Lax is first year as the coach, so really no one's fault there. But I think this year we'll see more consistency and just a little more excitement, though the record will probably be similar.
Andrew John, reporter for the Desert Sun. We set him up. We knocked him down. Successfully survived the inaugural Desert Sundown /Shootout. Appreciate your time, my friend. We will see you soon at the Birds Barn of Acrisure Arena.
All right. Thanks, Jed.
All right, Firebirds flock. It's going to wrap it up for this season's debut episode of the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Again, per the Desert Sun, you can find every episode posted at thedesertsun.com or all the newspaper's sporting socials. Desert Willow Golf Resort, located right here in sunny Palm Desert, California. Get your tee times online for the Mountain View and or Firecliff courses at desertwillow.com, although be mindful when you're making those tee times right now. Mountain View down for overseeding. That'll be back up in just a few short weeks on October 23rd. In the interim, go enjoy the Firecliff course. Probably mentioned this a few times on this show, but recognized by both Golf Week and Golf Digest among the best public courses, the best courses you can play in all of golf-rich California. Oh, and when you're on desertwillow.com, when you're on site, be sure to check out the awesome and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy. My man Paul Busey over there. All your swing, education, tutelage, study, instruction needs. New friend, new sponsor for the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Your high desert hockey home, or I should say homes. You're going to find those at the Ground Squirrel. Again, some awesome gastropub style scratch made menu offerings there. And the 29 Palms Beer Company, just right down the street from the Ground Squirrel. Had the pleasure of visiting both in recent weeks. Friends, you're not going to be disappointed. Again, you're a local looking for a fun day away from the low desert, or you're a guest. You're a desert guest. You want to check out Joshua Tree. Maybe you're exploring Pioneer Town. We'll celebrate a bird's win, or if need be, drown some sorrows at either location. 29 Palms, the Ground Squirrel, or the 29 Palms Beer Company. Thank you so much to my guest on this episode, Troy Bodie, the VP of Hockey and Business Ops. Sorry, Troy, I didn't mean to shortchange you on the title there. And Andrew John joining us for the Desert Sundown, potentially named Desert Shootout segment. Still got to decide on that. Listener feedback is welcome. Appreciate Andrew's time. Friends, looking forward to another great season of Firebirds hockey. Season number 4 gets underway this Friday, October 10th, at home against the San Diego Gulls. We'll look forward to seeing you over at Acrisure Arena. Till then, thank you so much for your time, your interest, your ears, your listenership, your support. See you soon over at the Birds Barn. Until then, and always, be well.